The apartment was quiet in the particular way small apartments are quiet. The refrigerator hummed like it had something important to say but couldn't quite finish the sentence. The radiator clicked occasionally, like it was counting something. Avery sat at the small kitchen table staring at a cup of coffee that had long since gone cold. 6 months earlier, he had been admitted to the hospital after 4 straight days without sleep. 4 days without sleep changes the way the world looks. At first, you're just tired. Then you're exhausted. Then, somewhere around the 3rd night, the brain starts behaving like a person who has lost their glasses and refuses to admit it. You begin misinterpreting things. A shadow looks like someone standing in the corner. A quiet room sounds like whispering. The difference between a thought and a sound becomes negotiable. The hospital had fixed that, mostly. Avery slept now. Most nights. But sometimes the exhaustion crept back into his life the way fog creeps across a lake. Slowly, quietly, until suddenly you realize you can't see the shoreline anymore. And sometimes when the exhaustion came back, the side effects did too. The phone rang again. Avery picked it up. "Hello?" "Mr. Rowangham," a calm voice said. He immediately recognized it. Hannah, the nurse from the hospital. "How have you been feeling?" she asked. Avery leaned back in his chair. "Better," he said. "Still sleeping?" "Most nights." There was a small pause. Then Hannah asked the question Avery had been expecting. "Are you still experiencing the side effects of the medication?" Avery rubbed the back of his neck. "Sometimes." "And are you still using the diapers when necessary?" Hannah said the word the same way someone might say blanket or pill or bandage. Not embarrassed, not dramatic, just factual. Avery shrugged. "Occasionally," he said. "Usually when I know I'm going to be really tired, or really stressed." "That's completely normal," Hannah said. "Have you been experiencing stress lately?" Avery looked around his apartment, the clutter on the table, the half-finished coffee, the unpaid bills. "A little," he admitted. There was another pause. Then Hannah said something new. "We're offering a follow-up program for certain patients." "What kind of program?" "A retreat." The word sounded strange coming from a hospital nurse. "A retreat?" "Yes, a short program designed to reinforce the treatment." Avery stared at the window. Outside, the streetlights had begun turning on. "What happens at the retreat?" he asked. "Relaxation," Hannah said. "Hypnosis therapy, stress reset techniques." Avery laughed quietly. "Relaxation therapy," he said. "That's ironic." "Why?" "Because the thing I'm worst at is relaxing." Hannah chuckled. "That's exactly why we recommend it." Avery thought about it. Then he said yes. 2 nights later, a white van pulled up outside Avery's apartment at exactly 10 o'clock. The driver slid the door open. "Rowangham?" Avery grabbed his bag and climbed inside. There were 2 other passengers, a woman about his age with short dark hair, and a tall man with tired eyes. "Hi," the woman said. "I'm Charlene." "Kevin," the man said. "Avery." The van door slid shut, and they began driving. At first, the conversation was normal. Charlene talked about anxiety. Kevin talked about insomnia. Avery mostly listened. The highway lights passed by like slow blinking stars. After about an hour, Avery noticed something in the back of the van. A stack of supplies. Blankets. Medical kits, and several packages he immediately recognized. Diapers. He didn't say anything. Nobody else did either. The van kept driving. The city slowly disappeared behind them. About 6 hours later, the highway ended. The van turned onto a narrow road surrounded by tall trees. The forest felt unusually quiet, the kind of quiet that makes you aware of every small sound. Eventually, the road opened into a clearing, and there, sitting alone in the middle of the clearing, was a wooden cabin. Warm yellow light glowed through the windows. Smoke drifted slowly from the chimney. The van stopped. When they stepped outside, the night air felt cold and still. Waiting on the porch was a tall man wearing a long coat. "Welcome," he said. "I'm Dr. Halpern." Behind him stood two nurses. One of them was Hannah. Avery felt strangely relieved to see her. The inside of the cabin looked more like a lodge than a clinic. A couch sat against one wall. A lantern flickered near the center of the room. And in the middle of the floor stood a reclining chair. Dr. Halpern gestured toward the couch. "Please sit." Charlene, Kevin, and Avery sat down. For a moment, nobody spoke. Then Kevin looked around the room. "This is not what I expected." Charlene laughed nervously. "I thought it would look more like a hospital." Dr. Halpern smiled. "We find patients relax more easily in a comfortable environment." Then he explained the process. "This retreat focuses on reorganizing stress patterns in the brain through guided hypnosis." Charlene looked unsure. "What happens during hypnosis?" "Most patients simply relax," the doctor said. Then Hannah added something practical. "Before we begin, we recommend wearing protective garments." Kevin raised an eyebrow. "What kind of garments?" "A diaper," Hannah said calmly. "During deep relaxation, the body sometimes loses normal control. The diaper prevents interruptions so the patient can remain comfortable." Kevin blinked. "Well," he said quietly, "this retreat just got interesting." Charlene covered her mouth, trying not to laugh. "If we're all doing it, I guess it's not that weird." Avery shrugged. "I used them in the hospital," he said. Hannah nodded. "Exactly." The tension in the room eased. Soon the three of them were sitting quietly on the couch, waiting their turn. Avery went first. Dr. Halpern guided him into the reclining chair. "Just focus on your breathing," the doctor said. The pocket watch swung slowly. Back, forth, back, forth. Avery's eyelids grew heavy. The lantern light blurred. The room faded. And then everything went dark. For Avery, the moment of hypnosis felt less like falling asleep and more like stepping through a door he hadn't noticed before. 1 second, he was watching the pocket watch swing slowly back and forth. The next second, the room seemed farther away. Not gone. Just distant. When he opened his eyes again, the lantern light inside the cabin looked softer, almost like someone had turned down the brightness on the world. Avery blinked slowly. He could hear people talking somewhere nearby, but the voices sounded like they were coming from underwater. Dr. Halpern leaned toward him. "How do you feel?" the doctor asked. Avery tried to answer. Nothing came out. His mouth moved, but his voice stayed somewhere behind his teeth. Dr. Halpern nodded calmly. "Perfectly normal," he said. Hannah stood nearby, watching carefully. "His mind is still inside the hypnotic state." Avery slowly stood up from the reclining chair. His movements were slow and uncertain, like someone waking from a dream and trying to remember what gravity feels like. He walked across the cabin floor. Charlene watched him from the couch. "He looks completely lost," she said quietly. Kevin leaned forward. "Is he okay?" Hannah nodded. "Yes. This is a dissociative stage of the treatment." Avery wandered toward the window. The forest outside looked dark and endless. For a moment, he simply stood there, looking, listening, feeling like the world had become a puzzle he had forgotten how to solve. Behind him, the room remained calm. Nobody rushed, nobody panicked. Dr. Halpern checked his watch. "He'll return shortly," the doctor said. The others. Charlene was next. She sat in the reclining chair and watched the pocket watch swing. Within minutes, her eyes closed. Her breathing slowed. And soon she stood up the same way Avery had. Silent, confused. Walking slowly around the room like someone exploring a place they had never seen before. Kevin watched both of them with a strange mixture of curiosity and concern. "This is weird," he whispered. Hannah smiled slightly. "It's temporary." Kevin went last. By the time his hypnosis session finished, the cabin contained 3 quiet people slowly walking around the room without speaking. But it would have looked strange to anyone who didn't understand what was happening. But to the staff, it was routine. Hannah kept careful notes on her clipboard. Dr. Halpern adjusted the lantern, and outside the cabin, the forest remained completely silent. Eventually, Hannah guided Avery back to the couch. He sat down slowly. Charlene sat beside him. Kevin sat on the other end. For several minutes, none of them spoke. Not because they were being quiet, but because they simply couldn't. Their minds were still floating somewhere between sleep and waking. Kevin stared at his hands like they were new equipment he had just been issued. Charlene leaned back against the couch. Avery stared at the floor. Hannah stood nearby, watching them calmly. "You're doing well," she said gently. "You're exactly where you're supposed to be." After a while, Avery's thoughts began returning, slowly, like fog lifting off a lake. He blinked, looked around the room, then finally spoke. "What happened?" Hannah smiled. "You're coming out of the hypnotic state." Avery rubbed his forehead. "I feel strange." "That's expected." Kevin laughed quietly. "That might be the understatement of the year." Charlene stretched her arms. "I feel like I just woke up from the longest nap in human history." Dr. Halpern stepped forward. "Your mind's just experienced a deep reset cycle," he said. "It may take a little time to feel completely normal again." Later that evening, the 3 patients sat around a small wooden table eating soup. The cabin felt warmer now, more comfortable. Kevin looked around the room. "You know," he said, "this place is actually kind of nice." Charlene nodded. "Creepy forest aside, I agree." Avery looked toward the window. Outside, the trees moved slightly in the wind. The darkness between them looked deeper than normal darkness, like the forest had layers. Kevin noticed Avery staring outside. "What are you looking at?" "The trees," Avery said. Kevin laughed. "Trust me, they were there before the hypnosis too." Charlene smiled. "Let him enjoy the moment." Dr. Halpern entered the room. "Tomorrow we'll continue the sessions," he said. "Tonight you should rest." Hannah handed each of them a blanket. "Get some sleep," she said. "You've had a long night." That night, Avery lay awake on the small cabin bed. The silence of the forest was almost absolute. He felt calmer than he had in months. But something about the retreat still felt strange. Not dangerous, not wrong, just unusual. He closed his eyes, and eventually sleep came. Deep, quiet. The kind of sleep that feels like falling into dark water. And for the first time in a long time, Avery slept without dreaming. Morning arrived slowly in the forest. Light filtered through the tall trees outside the cabin like thin beams of dust-colored gold. The air inside the cabin smelled faintly of pine and coffee. Avery woke first. For a moment, he forgot where he was. Then he saw the wooden ceiling above him and remembered the retreat. The hypnosis, the long drive, the strange quiet of the forest. He sat up slowly. Across the room, Kevin was still asleep on the couch, one arm hanging off the side like someone who had simply run out of energy halfway through a thought. Charlene was already awake, sitting near the window. "You sleep okay?" she asked. Avery nodded. "Better than I have in weeks." Charlene smiled. "Same." Kevin groaned from the couch. "If you two could keep the cheerful morning conversation to a minimum," he muttered, "my brain would appreciate it." They laughed quietly. For a moment, everything felt normal, almost peaceful. Then Dr. Halpern entered the room. "Good morning," he said. "Today we'll complete the final stage of the retreat." Kevin rubbed his eyes. "Please tell me it doesn't involve another 6 hours of hypnosis." Dr. Halpern smiled slightly. "Just one more session." Kevin sighed. "Of course it is." Before the hypnosis sessions began, the group gathered in the center of the cabin. Dr. Halpern explained that they would do a simple trust exercise. "Sometimes the mind responds better when the body is relaxed," he said. Kevin looked at Charlene. "Translation," he whispered. "We're about to do something weird." Charlene laughed quietly. They formed a small circle. Kevin went first. He leaned backward. Charlene and Avery caught him easily. "See?" Kevin said. "I trust you both with my life." Charlene went next. Kevin caught her. Everything worked perfectly. Then it was Avery's turn. He stood in the center of the room. For a moment he hesitated. Then he leaned backward. Kevin and Charlene caught him. The room relaxed again. Dr. Halpern nodded. "Good. Now we'll continue with the final hypnosis session." Avery sat in the reclining chair again. The lantern light flickered softly across the wooden walls. Dr. Halpern raised the pocket watch. "Focus on the movement," he said calmly. Back, forth, back, forth. Avery's breathing slowed. His eyelids grew heavy. The room faded. For a moment, everything felt perfectly still. Then the hypnotic state returned. Avery stood slowly. His movements were calm but distant, his eyes unfocused. Kevin watched from the couch. "That's still creepy," he whispered. Charlene nodded. "It really is." Hannah observed Avery carefully. Something about his expression was different this time. Less confused. More quiet. She walked toward him. "Avery?" she said gently. He didn't answer. Dr. Halpern watched closely. "How deep is he?" he asked. "Very deep," Hannah said. "Deeper than yesterday." For a few minutes, Avery wandered slowly across the cabin floor. Then he stopped near the window. Looking out into the forest, the trees swayed slightly in the wind. The silence outside felt almost unreal. Finally, Hannah stepped forward. "I'm going to bring him out now." Dr. Halpern nodded. "Go ahead." Hannah spoke softly. "Avery, listen to my voice. Follow the sound." Her voice remained calm and steady. Slowly, Avery's focus began returning. His eyes blinked. His posture changed. Then suddenly he looked around the room like someone waking from a long nap. "What happened?" he asked. Kevin grinned. "You just took the weirdest nap in human history." Charlene laughed. "You looked like a sleepwalking philosopher." Avery rubbed his forehead. "I feel better." Dr. Halpern nodded. "That's the goal." By afternoon, the van returned. The retreat was over. Charlene hugged Avery before getting into the van. "Well," she said, "that was definitely the strangest weekend of my life." Kevin nodded. "But somehow also the most relaxing." Avery looked back at the cabin one last time. The forest surrounded it on all sides. Quiet. Still. Like it had been there long before the retreat. And would remain long after. The van drove away. Hours later, the city lights appeared again. One by one, the passengers were dropped off. When Avery stepped out in front of his apartment building, Hannah spoke to him from the driver's seat. "Remember what you learned here," she said. "If the stress comes back, don't ignore it." Avery nodded. "I won't." Later that night, Avery lay in his own bed. The apartment was quiet again. The refrigerator hummed softly in the kitchen. The radiator clicked once. Outside, a car drove past slowly. But inside Avery's mind, something felt different. The constant pressure that had followed him for months was gone. Or at least quieter. He closed his eyes. Sleep came easily. Deep. Calm. And for the first time in a very long time. Avery Rowingham slept through the entire night. Thank you for tuning in to this edition of Mommy Sarah's Story Time. If you enjoyed the stories, please support the channel by liking and subscribing. Remember, my channel is not monetized, and I write most of the content myself. On occasions when I don't, it's sourced through emails from trusted contacts. Please feel free to like, share, and subscribe. If you're able to, consider making a donation to support our channel. Your support means a lot. Thank you so much for watching, and I look forward to sharing more stories with you.